Okay guys, in this game you see me play the move 95 and then leave the table like a boss thinking that I was completely winning. And indeed, I got to win this game in the next two moves. But if you look at the evaluation here, the engine says the position is pretty much equal. So I wanted to show you this game from the beginning, sort of to wrap up everything that we have covered up to this point, because this is lesson number 200, and more specifically what we have been focusing on for the last 10 lessons or so, which is what we're training for on a real tournament game. How do we approach the game? How do we calculate? How do we make practical decisions? And how do we go about listening to our intuition or trusting our pure calculation? So with that said, let me show you this game from the very beginning. And as you can see, I started with the move pawn to f4, bird's opening. You've seen it many times in this channel. And guys, a few things about this opening. Number one, I'm saving a lot of time by playing a system like this. Easy to implement. I don't have to memorize so many lines. Number two, more often than not, I surprise my opponents. Not many people know how to play against f4. Now, in this case, I think my opponent was prepared. He has seen me play this before, and he played the sharp e5. Now, this is the line why a lot of people don't play the bird's opening. It's From's gambit. But if you look at the evaluation again, right off the bat, it's giving me 0.53 for the white pieces. And on top of that, since I played this so much, I have a very good idea of what to play in these positions. It's easy for me to make practical decisions. Now, before we go any further, I wanted to tell you one thing that I do to prepare for these tournaments, of course, is to play practice games. And what I do is, here on chess.com, I play games against engines. I pick a difficult one. I have my physical chessboard and my iPad next to it. And this line that my opponent played, Bishop G4 specifically, I have played it a few times already against these engines. So again, I have more experience than most of my opponents. The sharpest or the scariest line here is G5. And even you have seen me on the live streams playing against these, getting very nice games. Now, Bishop G4 was played, and I remembered from my preparation that I should play pawn to e3, followed by bishop e2, castle, and I keep the extra pawn. Don't forget, your opponent is giving you a free pawn in order to develop quickly and get to attack your king. So 3 pieces developed. I have only 2 if I play bishop e2. However, I'm thinking maybe they want to play something like 95 and put more pressure. Like I was thinking bishop e2, maybe something like bishop takes, 95. Of course, it doesn't work right away, but I felt like it was in the air. And I remembered, well, in these positions, it is thematic to play pawn to d4. And I did it now before bishop e2 because I figured I'm controlling these 2 squares from the knight. And then I thought, well, maybe they play c5, but if they did, they are not going to castle to the opposite side and attack me. And also, I could just play c3. Everything is under control. So d4 was played, then queen e7 indeed, and then I just played bishop e2. Guys, if we look at the evaluation one more time, this is roughly equal. And whenever you see a position where there is one side with an extra pawn, in this case, I have the extra pawn, and the position is equal, it's because they have compensation for it. They have good attacking chances. But again, for me, I know that soon I'm going to castle, develop my pieces, and I keep the pawn. So after knight g to f6, I decided to castle. My opponent goes knight d5, and at this point, look at the evaluation go up to 1.2. And this is because they did not play consistently with the plan, which is castle to the opposite side and attack, or simply go on and put pressure. So after knight d5, this is a critical moment in the game, so I took my time to look at my candidate moves. Number one was queen d3, and this is what I was telling you before, guys. If you have your openings prepared, studied, it's easy for you to make practical decisions. Queen d3 came to mind immediately because I have seen it before in the theory and because I have played it in those practice games. Many times when I play those practice games, maybe I don't do this move, but when I review the game, the engine recommends queen d3. So I'm seeing it over and over, and it's easy to think of that. So I thought of queen d3, but then I looked at my other candidate moves and e4 came to mind. Now, if you want to get the most out of this video, pause the video and compare what you get out of e4 and what you get out of d3. Now, it turns out that queen d3 is the strongest continuation, but I decided to go for e4. Now, to make it as realistic to you guys as possible, this is what I was calculating. e4, queen takes, already my intuition tells me, well, queen and king on the same file, it cannot be good. But still, I needed to calculate something concrete. So I'm thinking e4, queen takes, bishop d3. I thought of rook e1 first, but I figured that it's not going to be so easy. They just castle, and I don't have any powerful discovered attack on the queen. Mainly because they always have, after I move the bishop, they have bishop f3 hitting my queen. So I figured, okay, if e4, queen takes, I'm going to play bishop d3 first. And I like the fact that this queen didn't have many squares. This diagonal controlled, this one controlled. If they go down this file, rook e1, very powerful. Of course, they could do bishop e6, but then c4 and d5. This is what I was calculating during the game. But then there was another line. What if e4, queen e4, bishop d3, bishop takes f3, right? So they take the knight and they're hitting my queen. Of course, I had to calculate and evaluate the resulting position. So I'm going to do it one last time in our head, and then I show you what happened in the game. So e4, queen takes, bishop d3, bishop takes, and then I figured, okay, what if I just take the queen, they take mine, and at that point, I'm hitting this knight, and I'm hitting the bishop. So I figured if I take here on d5, then the bishop is still attacked, I'm hitting b7 and I'm hitting f7. Guys, if you cannot visualize that position, we gotta go back to the lessons we've had on visualization, calculation, and I have to tell you, as I'm playing these tournament games, I feel more and more that that's the most important area for us to improve from this moment on. Calculation, visualization, that's the backbone of everything that we need to continue to do after lesson number 200. After that position that I took the queen, this bishop is in trouble. So they could go ahead and do bishop h5 to defend this pawn because I'm hitting it twice. But then I figured, okay, in that case, I take on b7, rook b8, bishop c6, and the knight is pinned to the king. That king has to defend, right? And then the other variation was after I took on d5, if they simply take on c2, well, I considered rook takes or bishop takes. I knew that bishop takes f7 is just very nice. I get the pawn, king has to stay in the center, then bishop g5. I really liked this position. So with that in mind, I had to decide queen d3, more solid, I keep my advantage, or do I go with e4? So e4 was played, queen took, bishop d3, and notice how the evaluation went from 120 something to, let me see, 0.47. If I had played my queen d3, then it maintains 1 point something, right? 0.97 and so on. So after e4, queen takes, bishop d3, bishop takes f3, I took on e4, bishop d1, and then bishop d5. So this is the position that I had visualized, and then my opponent decided to simply take on c2. Now, notice that it seems to be the right move, so 0.38 for the white pieces, and even though it's not a huge advantage, I think it's just way easier to play this as the white pieces. The computer could say whatever it wants, but for humans, it's not so easy to play this as black guys. So I just took on f7, king moved to d8. I had calculated, of course, if they go to f8, well, easy discover attack. If they had gone to e7, which seems to be the better move, I was happy with bishop g5. And again, the engine says nobody cares about bishop g5, but in my mind, this is just, again, way better for the white pieces. But the engine says 0.15, come on. So anyways, my opponent plays king d8, very logical. I go bishop g5, and my opponent goes king c8. Again, we've had so many lessons on attacking the king in the center, on playing with the initiative, on converting advantages, guys. And in this case, we have that initiative. Now, after king c8, I had thought of, okay, I'm just going to develop my knight. I'm fully developed, then bring the rook. This has to be better for the white pieces. But then, right when I was going to move my knight, I thought, okay, what if I just play bishop e6? Pinning the knight, the king cannot go ahead and continue to castle by foot to incorporate the rook because of the knight. Of course, I considered what if they just go rook e8, and in my mind, I was just going to play bishop h3. I didn't want to play d5 because then the knight or the bishop could get active hitting the king and so on. So very, very careful with giving your opponent a break. So I played bishop e6, rook f7 is in the air, so my opponent plays bishop g6, and look at that evaluation bar goes to 288. Again, guys, I know it's not like we did anything extraordinary, but I have been on the other side of the fence, and it's so difficult to defend to find their accurate move. If you're attacking and you make a mistake, like you're gonna see in this game, well, you lose the initiative, you lose the attack. If you're defending and you make a mistake, you lose the game, right? So after bishop g6, I knew that I wanted to move my knight, and initially I thought of knight c3 to get to d5 for b5, maybe with my rook going to c1. But then I figured, what if I just go knight d2, knight c4? Trying to hit the bishop, then rook c1, but also I could land on e5 to put more pressure. Now, turns out the better move was knight h3 or knight c3, but I decided to go with knight d2, and notice how that evaluation is going down a little bit. Then rook e8, again, I didn't want to play d5 because I don't want to make this available for them. This pawn, as isolated as it is been very, very powerful, and there's no time for them, guys, to capitalize on that weakness. I'm being energetic, I'm attacking. So here I was deciding between two moves, bishop g4 and bishop h3. Something was telling me don't go to g4 because then you have two pieces hanging and it couldn't be good, right? But at the same time, I wanted the bishop here to control the 7th rank, and also in case they do something like b6 to escape, I could go to f3 right away, right? But then I really wanted to make sure that it was safe, and I was thinking, okay, bishop g4, what could they do to punish me? Well, I thought, what if bishop b4, knight c4, rook e4, hitting the hanging bishop and the pawn? So that was the final excuse for me to go bishop h3, right? So I continued to pin the knight. My opponent goes bishop e7, and now at this point, another critical moment. I wanted to know if I should just trade bishops, play knight f3 that came to mind, or bishop f4. First instinct told me, look, I was ahead in time, I had more time than my opponent. This position is not so easy, their king is in the center. Don't simplify the game. Bring the bishop to f4, maintain the pressure, we've talked about this, and let him make mistakes. But then I really calculated knight f3, and that's what I went with. Now, notice that the evaluation is at 147, 155, so I'm maintaining my advantage. And of course, I had to calculate what if they take, what if they go bishop f6, what if they go bishop d6. All of these moves I needed to calculate. My opponent goes king d8, and then this next move that I played, the engine says it's an inaccuracy, but it made so much sense to me. And I just said, which of my pieces is the only one that is doing nothing? Well, this rook, and I brought it over to e1. Now, notice how the evaluation instantly goes to 0.21. And in my mind, I was thinking, what could they do about this? Well, bishop g5 is the only one. They cannot move the bishop away from here. If they take, I take back. And again, even if they take over here, look, my pieces are just way more active. It's going to take them some time to move the king to safety and activate the rook. I have 96. This has to be better for me. So I was happy with this variation. But the engine says 0.16. Come on. So anyways, after rook e1, my opponent plays bishop f6. And then here, I played a move. This is what you saw in the footage. I was so happy to play knight e5. Of course, I calculated everything and I made sure that I was happy with it. It was not like an impulse, right? So after knight e5, I had to calculate what if the bishop takes, what if the knight takes. Now, if the bishop took, I was thinking bishop d7, I'm hitting that rook. If the rook take, trying to get two pieces for the rook, I almost thought that was not working for me, but then I thought, well, I take with my rook, hitting the bishop, right? And I was happy with this variation. Also, what if after bishop g5, bishop d7, the rook goes to e7? I thought, well, rook f8, bishop blocks, bishop takes, rook takes, knight f7 check, and even if they go king d7, I trade on e8, and my knight goes to g5, right? So basically something like this. And if bishop e8, I was thinking of take, knight f7, and then once we trade everything over here, I collect the bishop. So I was happy with this variation of bishop takes g5, and then my opponent plays knight e5, which is completely winning, guys. And here the point is that I don't have to take. All I need to do is pawn takes back, and they are already in trouble. The bishop is hanging, but if they collect it, there's check. They could block with the bishops, doesn't matter. And then we have checkmate on d7. And of course, if they did rook e5, well, we take back, the bishop is pinned, and we simply are winning this. In the game, my opponent just played at this point h6. They knew they were already in trouble. And guys, I gotta tell you, I was set to just play rook d1 anyways. King comes over here and collect with a check. Turns out it was even better to just play e takes f6, but I didn't care. I knew that this was completely winning. Even here, I was set to do e takes f6. The engine says, come on, take with the bishop, then check, and you collect on g6, right? Well, in my mind, my opponent resigned after rook d1, but I was just gonna take, go over here, check, and rook g7. This is what I had in mind, right? But it doesn't matter. My point is, guys, that I need you to see how openings are not that important. I played this opening that nobody likes, and I got a comfortable position in the middle game. Then I was able to use what we have learned to gain the initiative and calculate my candidate moves, compare the resulting positions, and so on. Like always, let me know in the comments what you thought of the game. If you have any questions, any suggestions for the next 100 lessons, and I will see you in our next live stream.